Hey guys, Shwin Gaming here, and today we're going to be talking about conditionals, and this is the fourth video, I believe, in my series on learning Java and Java basics. Let's get started. There are two kinds of control flow statements, which is what we're doing today. Control flow statements, there are two types of them. First type is the excuse me. First type is the conditionals. There's the if else, and the switch. Let's start with the if. Let's just get rid of all this code that we had before. Okay, so first let's just make an integer. We'll call it integer I, and we'll say just int I equals 0. And then now let's make the actual conditional. This is just saying it's unused, but we'll just say if I is greater than 0, system.out.println, or you can use print or println, doesn't matter. Print, say it is less, or no, I is less than 0. Now, what will happen when we run this is first it'll see this definition and it'll say it'll set an integer named I to 0. Then the next thing that happens is it goes to this if, and it'll compare, and it'll look for the operators first. This is the greater than operator. It's not greater than or equal to, but it is greater than. So it'll say it's comparing I and 0, and it's I is not greater than 0 in this case, because I equals 0, and we're not talking about greater than or equal to. So I equal is 0, so it's not less. I is not greater than 0. So it won't execute this code, and if we run the program, it'll say terminated without inputting anything here. Now let's say if you want to test if two variables are equal, you can put the equals equals. Now you have to put two equals, because otherwise it'll think that you're trying to set I to be equal to 0. But we're trying to compare, so you have to put two equals there. Now if we run this, it'll say I is equal to 0, and it is true, so it is going to execute this code. Now, what happens if we have an if-else statement? There's that too. So now, after this if, let's say we wanted to see if I is greater than or if I is less than 0. So we could put I is greater than 0, and then we can put, to figure out if it's otherwise, we can put else. Then system.out.println I is less than 0. Alright, now watch what happens. It's going to say, because I equals 0, and so it's going to go to this else, and it's actually going to say I is less than 0, but that's not what we want, because I is equal to 0. I isn't less than 0, right? Because I equals 0. So how can we fix this? We could do what's called the else if conditional. So we could do else if I is less than 0, right? Then do this, and then we can put another else here and say, because if it's not greater than and if it's not less than, then it must be equal to. So we can just put system out println I equals, or I is equal to 0. So now if we run this, it'll say I is equal to 0, because it's saying this one, no, that's false, so then it goes to the else. This is also false, so it goes to the final else. Alright? And then it goes to this. Now, that's an if-else statement. Now there's also another way that you could do something similar to this. Say, well, first of all, let me just point out, you don't have to put number comparisons in here. You could also put, like, a boolean, like, let's say boolean is pressed, say we were working with a number, and not question mark equals false, and then you could say if is pressed, then we'd system.out but println the button is pressed and the button is not pressed, and we just get rid of this. Alright, now get rid of this else if, because the only option is true or false. So now, if the button is pressed, then the button is pressed. But if pressed is false, so it's going to go to this one, and it should say the button is not pressed. Now, there's another way to do this if you're looking at like strings. Well, first of all, if you're going to compare a string, just make sure this, like, string s equals, alright, now say we're trying to compare a string to a different one, well, yeah, say we're trying to compare, if you would do, this is what you have to do, instead of doing s equals hello world, you'd have to do this, s dot equals, and then put the quotation marks in there and type hello world. Then it's going to type the button is pressed, so it should say yep, the button is pressed. So that's evaluating the true. Now the reason you have to put dot equals, we're going to talk about that in the object episode, but for now let's move on to switch statements. So if we get rid of all this code, alright, so let's say string s, let's do a voting thing, or let's just do it with integers for now. So int I equals 0. Now let's do a switch statement. Switch, right, I, just put I in there, and then you open this up, alright, and it won't auto indent the first one because there's a different kind of way that most people do this. That you open that up and then you put brackets, alright, you just put switch I, you don't put like I is less than or anything. And now we're going to type case 0, right, case 1, case 2, case 3, alright, and that's all we're going to put. That we're just going to have 4 cases, right? So what you want to do, say if it's case 1, we'll just do system dot out dot print ln 0, right? And I'm just going to copy and paste this just to make it easier to type. Alright? 1, 2, 3. Alright, so now what happens, it's going to switch statement, and it's going to say, oh, okay, which one is this? Alright? It's going to say 0, I equals 0, so then we're going to go to case 0, because I is equal to 0. If it was a string, you could put like case hello, case goodbye, case anything. So I'll show you that after we run this, but let's run this, and it says 0, 1, 2, 3. That's not what we want. We just wanted it to print out 0. And there is a reason for this, and it actually can be useful. What you can do is, once it finds one that it fits, it'll actually just do all of the ones below that. So let's just switch this to 1, alright? And then it won't print out the 0, it'll just print out 1, 2, 3, because it's going through it, nope, doesn't fit this one, okay, it fits this one. So now it'll do this one and all the ones below it. But what if we don't want to do that? Then you can use what's called the break command. So if we don't want it to do everything below that too, you can just do break after that, and then break. You just copy and paste this. Break, break. Alright, now it's only going to print out the one that we want. But what happens if we put like a 4? Nothing's going to happen. And what happens if you want to have something like if all else, like if it's not one of those things? What you can do is have a default case, or default. Alright, well, undo this indent. default. Alright, and then we could do system out println I is not within 0 and 3. Alright, so now, because we can make I like 5 or something, and it'll say I is not within 0 or 3. If you put in 2, it'll say 2. So, now that we got that working, let's move on to the next thing. So remember, break just makes it so that it'll stop right away instead of going through all of them. So, what's the next thing we could do? Let's do loops, which is the second kind. Remember how I mentioned that there were 2 kinds in this? So there's the conditionals, which is what we just covered, and then there's the loops. So let's get rid of all this code for conditionals. Alright, loops. There's three kinds of loops. Yeah, I'm just making sure I'm not wrong. There's the while loop, the do while loop, and the for loop. For is probably the most common, but we're going to start with while because it's the easiest to understand. So loops are related to conditionals, which is why I did loops second, because every loop will have a conditional unless it's just an infinite loop. So let's say int I equals 0, right? And then we'll make, let's say we want to keep increasing I until I is bigger than 5, because we don't want I below 5. So then we'll say while I is less than 5. Then we'll say system.out.println gotta go higher. Alright, and then we'll also inside of this we'll say I is equal to I plus 1. Alright? Or we'll say I is, alright, plus I plus period, gotta go higher. So now it's just gonna print out the value of I, and it's gonna say I is, and then the value of I, and then gotta go higher. I'm not sure, I don't remember if I covered this in the last video, but you can use pluses to do that. So now let's run this. It says I is 0, gotta go higher, and then it goes back to here. It does the while loop again. It sees that I is still less than 5. So it says I is 1, gotta go higher. I is 2, gotta go higher. I is 3, gotta go higher. I is 4, gotta go higher. And then it stops because now I is not less than 5, because 5 isn't less than 5. So it's gonna stop. And we have, after this, we'll just say system out println I. So now it's going to go I is 0, I is 1, I is 2, I is 3, I is 4, and then it just prints out 5 because it's done. And that's what a while loop is. But what if you did something like, what if we were making like an input program, alright? And let's do that. And what if you were looking to see if the user gave valid input, alright? You could use what's called a do while loop. So a do while, alright, do, you just put do, and then open that, alright? It's giving me an error, because what happens in a do while loop is it'll run the first one no matter what. So that this is the reason this is useful is because say we're having an input, alright? And the like a user input program, which is what we're going to do in the next video, a simple user input program. What happens if the user gives invalid input? Then what would happen is the user would have to re-enter a number. But you always want them to enter a number in the first place. So you would do a do while loop, and then it would do it the first time, and then you put a while down here, and you'd say while true. Let's just say while true for now. And then you have to put a semicolon. That's just a weird thing about Java. Oh, oh yeah. Because it's an infinite loop. Because it's saying unreachable code because there's an infinite loop right here. But anyways, that's how you use a do-while loop. For an example of that, go in the next video where we're going to be doing a simple user input program. Anyways, let's move on to the next type of loop, which is the for loop, and probably the most common loop you're ever going to see. And we can actually get rid of this into I equals 0 because of how the nature of for loops. So, let's start a for loop off. Let's say we want to print all of the numbers 1 through 10. You would say, so you'd do for. Alright, now you can give 3 different parameters in here. You put, the first one is the declaration. The second one, and I know I'm not typing actual things in here. This is just so that you can remember this. The first one is declaration, the second one is test, and then the third one is increment. Now, what does this actually do? Wait, whoops. Can't type today. You can also code like this if you want. I used to, but I like to keep my code a bit shorter, so I go like this now, on the same line. But anyways, so what is this declaration, test, and increment? What does that even mean? What that means is declaration is where you set your variable. So you can do like int I equals 0. Alright, remember in the last one we had to have it up here outside of the while loop. The test is just what you would put in the while loop. Okay? So like I is less than 10. Or let's do less than and equal to so that it also does 10. Alright? And then this is the increment statement where we increase I. Remember last one we did I equals I plus 1, which increased I by 1. We just put that there. I equals I plus 1. Another way of typing I equals I plus 1, the error here. What? Oh yeah, less than or equal to, not equals less than. Alright, another way of typing this in a bit shorter way is just doing I++, because you use that so often in programming that you just put plus plus. They made that to make code a bit shorter and easier to read. But you can just put I++, and that's shorthand for increase I by 1. Alright, and then we can just do system dot out dot println I. Alright, and this, now it's going to go through this. It's going to, before the looping starts, it's just going to run this. Alright, and then it's going to run this code and then test it. Well, it'll test this and then run the code and then do this and then test this and then run the code and then do this. But it'll stop if this is not true. So let's go ahead and run that, and it'll just go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 10. Okay? You can put as many things as you want in here, but for now we're just going to leave it like that. And that's it. Oh wait, one more thing actually. Say you're afraid of the number 8, and you don't want to print the number 8. How could we do this? With using a loop. You could do, because say we're printing out like 1,000 numbers, and you don't want to type it out for each one, except for 8. So you could say, if I is equal to 8, remember that break command? We could use that again. Break. Right? And now, it's going to just go, oh, whoops, that's, what we did is put it after that, so it's already printing it before checking. Alright, Control-Shift-F or Command-Shift-F, depending on if you're on Windows or Mac. That'll just auto-format your code, so that it looks nice. But remember, now it's just going to break out of the loop right there, because you're afraid of the number 8, and you don't want it to print. So that's good. Now we don't have it printing 8, but what if you wanted to just skip 8? Alright? Then we would use another one of these conditional statements that's called continue. Alright, continue means it's going to stop running the code for the rest of that statement, and just go back to the start. Like up here, do the increment, and do this. So now it's going to skip the 8th step. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. It skipped the 8 because we're saying if it's 8, continue, go back to here, and just increment, skip that step. So that would be looping and conditionals. If you liked this, make sure you subscribe, like, and show this video to your friends. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. If you have any requests, I'm currently making a Battlefield 4 video, but if you want me to do any other games that you like and you want to see me play them, tell me which ones in the comment. And this is Schwinn Gaming. Thanks for watching.